Hey guys, Huang here, and today we are going to dive into some software that can give your film that filmic look. Footage straight from cameras nowadays are just so clean and crisp, and sometimes you really just want to bring it back to that filmic look. Dehancer is film emulation software that allows you to film everything just straight out of camera, crisp, clean, all of that, and then to dehance it and kind of give it that filmic cinematic vibe that everyone is just going for. Because filming everything with actual film can be pretty tough and tedious, so this makes it a lot easier to use whatever you have at your disposal and just dehance it back down to the filmic look. So we could just sit here and talk about the technical differences between film and digital, but I think the best way of just showing off Dehancer is just to dive into it and see what it can do. One quick note before we dive into this, I just wanted to say that Dehancer did send me this software for free so I could review it. However, all of the reviews, thoughts, and opinions in this video are completely my own. With that, let's dive into it. Alright, so we're going to open this up in Premiere Pro. I have a project set up already and have a handful of clips on this timeline. So these first few clips are clips I took in Vietnam, and I'm going to go ahead and play these for you to just be able to see these clips raw. So these clips were filmed in Cine 4, so kind of a log-ish format on the Sony cameras. And I'm going to use some of these clips, and then the rest of the clips are stock footage clips, which are slightly color graded or more saturated than I would like it, but I wanted to be able to see what this software can do with both camera clips that I've taken and if I wanted to mess around with stock footage clips or things that are just more saturated, etc., then this is a great example of that too. Alright, so let's just scrub back to the beginning here, and we are going to go ahead and put our adjustment layer. We're going to slap this on, just put it over all the clips, and I'm going to try to do Dehancer on just this adjustment layer, because yes, we can go in and change every single clip individually, but I'm just going to slap this look on and see what it looks like. So as soon as we put this on, you can see that it has this hue, this bluish kind of hue to it, and what it did is, if we open up the film here, we can actually see that it put this Kodak on already. We can disable it to bring it a little bit more back to normal, and then we'll enable the film again to just show you that this adds a little bit of teal. However, there's a whole lot of options here. From the input here, it already brings it up to Rec 709. You can adjust the color, the tint, and the temperature here, just to make it balance out more, but I would do that more on an individual clip level instead of on this adjustment layer over the whole film. So we're just going to put that away for now, and we're going to go ahead and look at this film profile. So this is essentially the big thing about Dehancer. So this film profile allows you to choose between a whole variety of stuff, and all of this comes built in. So we can choose this ADOX, whatever it is, profile here, and just switching between all these different profiles essentially changes your look. And already you can see this has a bit more of a filmic look than what was just straight out of camera. This also added a bit more grain to it, which is, it just gives you that filmic look without really doing anything at all. Once we dial in all these settings, we can get it even better, but this is just simply by selecting a profile and just putting the Dehancer tool onto this adjustment layer. And we can disable the film here just to get a little bit of the grain on this and see what it looks like. But let's put this film back on, and we can go ahead and we can just, there's so many different options here, like the Cine still profile. There's just so many different things. You can scroll through all of these if you wanted to, but all of these kind of give your film a different look. And essentially, depending on what the vibe you're going for and all that, you got plenty of options. So I think that's one thing that's really cool about Dehancer, is they just give you a lot of different options, even this kind of retro old filmic vibe. Look at that. Like, this looks like something like just way old school film before color was even invented. Alright, so the next tool we have is the expand tool, and this is going to allow you to brighten or darken your blacks and your whites. So we can just mess around with these. However, in this case, I'm not going to do anything with those, so we'll just reset that, and we'll just move on to the next section here, which is print. And this allows you to bring up another profile of print formats, which you can actually do with these Kodak things, and this looks pretty cool. Honestly, I kind of like it. So let's go ahead and let's leave this on here. And the cool thing about doing this in this adjustment layer is it applies to all of our clips here. So as we scrub through now these stock footage things, look at that, like the colors have been a bit more desaturated. It just looks a bit more cinematic already. So next thing we can do is we can adjust Again, more coloring here on the color head. We're just not gonna mess around with those because in this case, I'm just gonna leave everything the base colors because that's the kind of stuff that I would do on a per clip level. But let's move on to film grain. So this is something that's really, really cool. A lot of people really want that filmic look, and adding grain to the film makes it just look so much more old and raw. It looks more genuinely like film. And this allows you to customize everything from adding the amount here. This is just a ton of grain. I obviously don't really like that much at all, but you can just do so many different settings here. You can enhance the resolution too. So if we bring it up to 100, that brings it to about the sharpness that it came out of camera. If we bring it to 0, this really makes it a lot less sharp than it would be. And depending on the vibe of the film you're going for, and like I guess how old you want it to look, you can reduce the sharpness or bring it up if you need to, depending on what you're going for. And the really cool thing I like about all of these is they all have their own little enable button. You can enable or disable specific features just like the film grain here. So I can actually tweak a whole lot of things and not have to just enable or disable Dehancer as a whole, but I can actually see, oh, what if I don't want the film grain anymore? Let's see what it looks like. Moving on, now we have the halation, and halation is, let me pull up a different clip. It's easier to see on here. So if you see in the shadows and highlights here, these bright areas, the halation gives it kind of that glow that you would see in film that cameras don't really do anymore unless you have like a blurry lens or an older camera. So if I bring up this local diffusion, you can actually see what this halation is doing. I don't really like it that much. I'm gonna bring it back down to what it was before, but let's just give it a little bit of a pop here. Let's leave it at about 42. And we can just see the little bit of halation around the edges of the structure especially. So that gives us a good example of what halation does. So we can disable it, we can see what it looks like, and then we'll just enable it, and let's just leave it on for now. The next thing we can dive into is bloom, and the bloom kind of gives you that soft pop around the highlights. So if we go ahead and we enable this, you can just see around the highlights and the bright areas of the image, it just gives it a subtle little glow, a little bit of a pop to really make it look a little bit more filmic and a little less contrasty. So let's play this clip back real quick, and let's leave the bloom on. I like the little bit of pop that it gave there. This is already looking pretty cinematic, so let's put some crop on. Look at this. Now we're feeling cinematic. Now with these Dehancer tools that we just put in, look at that. Now it feels like we're just watching this retro movie. All right, so let's move on to the vignette. So the vignette will allow you to basically brighten or darken the edges, and let's just bring it around 0.7, and we can feather it. It starts off feathered, but if you don't feather it, then you can clearly see what the vignette is doing. But for the most part, you'll pretty much always leave it feathered. We can adjust the size of it and just make sure that it is kind of the right level of vignetting that we want. And let's leave a little bit of vignetting on because I like the effect. I like how it makes the footage look a little bit more centralized. It takes kind of the edges off the screen a little bit. It makes it look a little bit more filmic and old. So if we take off this adjustment layer, we can just see just how far we've come from going from these base bright images to kind of these really filmic vibes. Like the vibe of these clips have completely changed, and that's the awesome part about all of this is you can turn these clips or pretty much any clips into whatever you want. So next we're going to go into FilmBreath, and the easiest way to explain this is just by popping everything up here. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna enable this, and you can see how it's kind of flickering and flashing across the screen. I set everything very high right now, so this is not what you would have it set to normally. But what this does is it gives it that film look. When you have the film that's scrolling across the projector, each image is not exactly the same white balance and brightness and all of that. So as it scrolls by, you get a little bit of that flicker, and that's what this FilmBreath does, is it gives it a very subtle flicker. And obviously if you want more of it, you can add more, but I'm just gonna leave it at the default settings here, which gives it a little bit of a flicker. All right, so next we are moving on to gate weave, and what gate weave is essentially, it gives it a bit of a shake, if that makes sense. Because footage nowadays, especially if you're filming with a gimbal or a stabilizer of any kind, everything looks so smooth, and this gives it a little bit more of that handheld raw feel. So if we go ahead and this adds a lot of shake, so I just turn these settings up to max, and you can see that this looks a little bit more home video like. We can go ahead and we'll change these settings back because this is obviously a little too much shake, but adding just a little bit of a shake makes it feel a little bit more handheld and raw as opposed to filming on a stabilizer. So this already makes it feel a bit more cinematic, but I'm gonna push it to about 30 instead of 10 just to give it a little bit more shake and makes it just feel a little bit more handheld. Now look at this vibe, and we haven't even added things like contrast and done some of those other changes that probably would enhance this a little bit more. But in this case, I think just using the Dehancer tool in and of itself, just look at this vibe. It completely changes these clips and just gives it a really, really cool cinematic vibe. So the next thing we have is false color, and this is more useful for your awareness. This is not something that you turn on and leave on unless you want this effect for some weird reason, but it allows you to be able to see the bright areas and the dark areas. So the bright areas are in red or the brighter colors, and then the darker areas are in the blues and the purples, the shadows essentially. So it allows you to be able to see things that you might not be able to see with it off. If you're really trying to fine tune color settings or making sure things are exposed properly and all of that, you'll be able to see that there. The output here allows you to kind of scale all of your adjustments. So if after you've changed everything, you're like, oh, well, maybe this is too punchy for me, then you can scale it back to, 80, 50%, whatever it is. So that's pretty much it for all of the Dehancer tools. And being able to change the vibe completely by switching to a different profile just at the click of a button like this is just amazing. And let's just try a different profile here. And we just switch to a different one, and it just changes the feel completely. It takes a little bit of the blue out compared to the one before, and it just gives it a different vibe. And that's what I love about this tool, is I can actually change the vibe of the video pretty much at the click of a button. If we look at some of these stock images here, like the stock images were just so clean and saturated before, and this really kind of brings it back and gives it that filmic look, which makes it so much more cinematic than what they were before. And then this clip especially, I absolutely love. It looks so filmic. It looks like something actually from a movie. And let's go ahead and we'll change it to something else. And if we just want to keep changing the vibe, just keep flipping through that. And this is a nice one too, this Fuji Chrome one. And we can just keep scrubbing through different profiles and just keep changing the vibe until I find something that fits what I'm going for. I really like this Kodak Portra 400 one. Let's look at a few of these clips. Like, they look so cool. We can pull up this Polaroid one, and this just adds like a matte layer of gray on top, which just feels really cool. And then this sepia one, like, look at that. If we added a bit more grain to this could feel so old school. Now we're going completely grayscale. Like, the options are endless. Like, depending on the vibe you're going for, like, I'm sure you can find something that fits the vibe, and it just makes your film look so much more cinematic. Right, let's switch back to the ADOX one we were using at the beginning here. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and show you some of the before and afters of these clips and what Dehancer can do. So that's pretty much it for the basics of Dehancer. And again, I used the word basics there because this is just like the tip of the iceberg. Just playing around with these tools, you can do so much to your films and add so many effects that would cost a ton of money to buy software for doing, all of these different things. But Dehancer makes it really cool because they bundle all of this into one complete package that you can just do everything from. So one of the things that I really hated about color grading was just how complicated it was. Using so many different tools I bought from so many different places, just trying to mesh them all together and make them work together to bring the cinematic filmic look to my films. Dehancer really simplifies that process. It just allows me to do everything all in one, and just again, how I showed you how customizable it was, and being able to just enable or disable film grain or the halations or just whatever it is, you have so much flexibility and customization that you can just do everything from one place. And that is what I love about Dehancer. So I haven't been using this product for an insane amount of time or anything, but it's definitely something that I am adding to my workflow going forward. And right now I am working on editing a bunch of clips and footage and everything from Vietnam, turning it into a cinematic video, and Dehancer is definitely gonna play a very important role in all of that. So keep an eye out for that video. So all in all, I really like what Dehancer Dehancer has done. I really like how they simplified the process of color grading and getting that filmic look and just making it easy and accessible for everyone. So feel free to go ahead and check out Dehancer in the description below, and go ahead and use the code TRAVELFAM to get 10% off your next purchase. If you have any questions, or if you have any comments, if you've used Dehancer before, if you have any tips and tricks or things that you like or don't like about it, let me know in the comment section down below, because I am genuinely curious and I want to know what you guys think about this product. Thank you guys again for watching. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next one.